Okay, thank you. And welcome everybody to our statewide grassroots press conference to alert and alarm and ring the alarm for the community across the state about the dangerous Prop 36. We are a coalition of organizers and activists and just people, human beings, rooted in our various areas across the state of California, rooted in our communities, who came together to fight Prop 36. We came together in this capacity to fight Prop 36 because we wanted no part of the insider negotiations that were happening in Sacramento, the idea that there was something to play with here, the idea that there was ground to concede, the idea that this was just a typical policy fight. This is something much more urgent. This is something that will have potentially catastrophic impacts on communities across the state. And we felt like we needed to mount a very serious and clear opposition as to why we're standing the way that we're standing against 36. Prop 36 came out of uh, every 2 year desire on the part of law enforcement special interests, and this year, retail lobby special interests to try and dismantle Prop 47. I want to be clear that Prop 47 was the floor, not the ceiling. Prop 47 was a good step forward. It was not the end all be all. Prop 47 was supposed to be the first step in the right direction. And I'm sorry if you're not speaking right now, can you please mute your Zoom? Thank you so much. So Prop 47 was the floor, not the ceiling, but it did have some very important material impacts, including helping people expunge felonies off of their record. And with California dealing with such a serious housing crisis, I would actually say it's beyond a crisis. We are living in a housing disaster in the state of California. The idea of reintroducing tens, if not hundreds of thousands of felonies into families across the state of California will not only make that problem worse, it'll make it unimaginably worse. Prop 36 is not about fixing anything. Prop 36 is not about making anyone safer. Prop 36 is about a reinvestment in the prison industrial complex because it's a big cash cow and power grab for certain special interests in the state of California. And it's about the retail lobby wanting to get us to continue to subsidize their failing businesses. And it's because of their failing business model. So remember, nothing causes a sense of insecurity or lack of safety more than economic and financial stress. Nothing causes mental health issues more than a sense of financial and economic stress. And nothing drives economic and financial stress, especially things like homelessness. Nothing drives that more than jail, and nothing drives jail more than felonies. This is a reiteration of the cycle we're all trying to fight ourselves out of. And if people are feeling unsafe right now, it's understandable because of the housing crisis. Prop 36 is here to try to manipulate people to be mad at the wrong people for the wrong reasons. So we're very honored here to have people from all over the state who are the ones that are really doing the work, that are really standing in their community, supporting their people, and speaking from a point of view of how these policies have material impacts on people's lives. So we're going to go into the agenda. Once again, happy to introduce myself. I'm Lex Stepling. I'm from Los Angeles Community Action Network, also co-founder, founding member, I should say, of the All People's Health Collective. I'm joined by Carolina Valle from Disability Rights California, also a co-founder, founding member of All People's Health Collective. All People's Health Collective is an autonomous community collective rooted in the demands that what everybody really needs right now is housing and money. And it doesn't always have to be so complicated. That's where health starts, is the stability for you and for your family. So I'm going to pass it now to one of our many amazing speakers and people who, like I said, are holding down and doing the real work in regions across the state. And we're going to start with Raymond Goins out of Silicon Valley Debug in San Jose. Raymond, thank you so much for being here and happy to pass it to you to talk to folks about your analysis of what's coming or potentially stopping.
Um, Thank you, Lex, for the introduction. My name is Raymond Goins. I'm with Silicon Valley Debug. We are based in San Jose, California, which is in the Bay Area. Prop 36 it will impact my community in a negative aspect, in that it's the first domino to fall in the attempt to reimagine what mass incarceration looks like. as Lex has stated earlier, I agree with you that Prop 36 is only it's only a proposition to harm people of black and brown faces. What we see out here in the Bay Area is people who support Prop 36 showing faces of black and brown men and women um, doing retail theft. And in our opinion, Prop 36 is a rebranding on the war on drugs. It's the same thing that Reagan did when he said that the crack epidemic was rampant and we need to do tough on crime. Prop 36, if passed, will give legislators and people that want forced mass incarceration an opportunity to use the voters' voice, as they did Polly Klaas for three strikes law, to pass further harsher penalties on people from the marginalized community. From my standpoint, Prop 36 is on poverty. Um, there's three premises that are being argued here locally on why Prop 36 should be passed. One premises was to stop retail theft. The other one to address the opioid crisis, and the other one was to address homelessness. Um, Local officials have echoed that Prop 47 is a cause for homelessness. Um, through my research, I've seen that since 2014, homelessness is on the rise, not because of a law that was passed to help people from the marginalized community come home and repair the communities. Homelessness has rose since 2014, since Prop 47 passed, because of the rising in the rising in building costs, which passed down to the owners, which the owners passed down to the renters. And the renters locally here in Santa Cruz County can't afford to pay their rent. So it's a war on poverty. It's a war on our people, and people should say no to Prop 36. Thank you, Lex.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raymond, and thank you once again for reiterating that this is a war on poverty, and the real crisis here is a cost of living crisis in California. I'm happy now to pass it to Matios Cadane down here in Los Angeles from the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. Please speak to us.
Greetings, friends. My name is Matheus Kidana with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. Also proud members of the All People's Health Collective as an organization. And yes, our understanding of Prop 36 is this is really a response to a culture of care and a culture of anti-carcerality that's grown across, the country, but especially here in Los Angeles. And efforts like Prop 36 seek to counteract that culture that's grown by, as the earlier brother said, trying to criminalize and dehumanize Black and brown people. And they do this by relying on lies. In LA, as in other parts of the country, this has really relied on the fabrication of narratives around organized retail theft that have been largely, debunked. And these narratives have, been pushed by large retail lobbies. And I think it's important context to name the fact that these large corporations like Target have always supported policing, both ideologically, but also materially through donations through the through various police foundations. Here in Los Angeles, Target has donated a real-time analysis and critical response center in 2005 to LAPD and widely banned data aggregation software Palantir to LAPD. Both have had tangible consequences to Black communities primarily, but also Black and brown communities, leading to communities being harassed, people being incarcerated, and folks being killed ultimately. And we've also seen examples of these corporations influencing the deployment of LAPD officers during the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor uprisings through email exchanges with LAPD's former police chief Michael Moore. Legislators who are openly supporting Prop 36 are just elucidating the fact that they are, in fact, at the behest of these corporations. And Prop 36 is both an effort to increase the state's prison population, to counter this honest and real culture of care that people actually want, as opposed to carcerality, and for these corporations to continue to extract resources from us at the expense of criminalizing our communities. We stand against it, as should everybody else. Thank you, Lex.
Thank you so much, Matios, and thank you for uplifting the cynical co-option of the term care and the constant reframing of the message that the Pro on 36 camp has been offering, claiming that it's about treatment. So just as a reminder, even the state legislative analyst office themselves said that Prop 36 will defund treatment. This is not about treatment. It's about what Matios just said, growing the prison industrial complex. So we're down in LA. We're going to go further down to San Diego, and really happy to introduce Genevieve Jones-Wright with Community Advocates for Just and Moral Government in San Diego. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Genevieve Jones-Wright. I am the founding executive director of Community Advocates for Just and Moral Governance, or MOGO. We are an impact litigation nonprofit organization based in San Diego. We sue the government in order to change policies and laws, and we work to hold the government accountable to all people, but especially marginalized people. And we stand firmly with community members and against Prop 36. Prop 36 is nothing more than a scam and a sham. It promises solutions to problems like homelessness and drug addiction, but there is absolutely no funding behind these empty promises. Prop 36 does absolutely nothing to tackle the real root causes of homelessness, substance use, and economic crimes. What Prop 36 will do is halt the progress we've made under Prop 47 and take away needed funding for mental health care, trauma recovery, and our K-12 education, for example. Law enforcement has been planning to dismantle Prop 47 even before voters passed it. I'm going to say that again. They have been conspiring. Retailers and law enforcement alike together have been conspiring to repeal and dismantle Prop 47 even before it was passed by voters by 60% of Californians. And this is just their latest effort to take us backwards. Californians deserve real solutions, not more failed policies that perpetuate mass incarceration. Prop 36 is not the answer to the challenges we face. I've said this before, and I will continue to say this. We cannot criminalize and try to over-incarcerate our way out of problems. History has shown us that piling on felonies do not help. They never have, they never will. And instead, such measures deepen the cycles of incarceration. They tear apart families and communities without addressing the root causes of the issues. Felony convictions saddle individuals with lifelong barriers to housing, employment, and education, and nearly make reintegration impossible because of the stigma. Prop 36 does not solve our problems, it only perpetuates them. We need to move away from punitive policies that have failed us time and time again. Substance abuse disorders are not crimes, they are public health crises. And Prop 36 incarcerates people for simple possession, not possession for sales only. I'm talking about simple possession for personal use. Just think about that for a second. We need to focus on real solutions that heal our communities and not line the pockets of big retailers and law enforcement who are bloodthirsty and profit-driven. Prop 36 takes us backwards, and it plays on the fears and the anger of community members that have been inflamed by the manufacturing of hysteria by law enforcement and big retailers. We cannot afford to give in to the hysteria. We cannot afford to buy into their latest scam and sham. No on Prop 36.
Thank you so much. And thank you also for reiterating how this drives and reiterates the problem over and over again. If you go to an area where you see a high concentration of homelessness, unhoused folks, and you were to survey everybody and say how many folks have been through the court system, have been through the jail system, the answer would be 100%. This drives the problem and reiterates it over and over and over again. It's not only harmful, but it's boring. So now I'll quickly pass it up to Sacramento to Vanessa Ochoa from Disability Rights California. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Vanessa Ochoa. I'm the Special Advisor of the Strategic Partnerships and Community Engagement Unit at Disability Rights California, and I'm from the Sacramento area. Disability Rights California is the agency designated under federal law to protect and advocate for the rights of Californians with disabilities. I have seen firsthand how over-policing and mass incarcerations have impacted the Latinx community with disabilities. I'm the mother of individuals with disabilities, and I'm a person with lived experience. And I'm very concerned for their safety and the safety of my family. After learning what the plan is behind Prop 36, people with disabilities are disproportionately represented in our prison system at staggering rates, with over 40% of people in state prisons having a disability compared to only 15% of people in general population. In California, 1 in 3 people in prison have a diagnosed mental illness. This overrepresentation reflects decades of policies that prioritize incarceration over housing affordability and community-based alternatives that especially impact Black and Brown communities and people experiencing homelessness. Prop 36 regressive return to a reliance on the criminal legal system will lead to greater incarceration, forced drug treatment, and will reduce funding for community-based programs that keep our communities healthy and safe. As a person with lived experience and a parent, this proposition worries me, and I really would like to just say Prop 36 exploits valid community concerns and provides a false, harmful solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for advocating for and representing a point of view that gets so consistently overlooked and undermined and underrepresented, especially when they try to reduce these policy fights to the typical and, like I said, tried and tired conversations. So we were up in Sacramento. Now we're going to go all the way to the top of the state, and really pleased to welcome Elena Girasol from Jefferson County Center and Park up in Humboldt County, another region of the state that often gets overlooked and underserved. So thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Carmen Elena Lanuncia Monge, known to some people as Girasol. As Lex mentioned, we're coming to you from Humboldt County in the far reaches of Northern California, in a small town called Eureka. I work at the Jefferson Community Center as the immigrant program coordinator and center liaison. And we do a whole host of different things here, working with community members. We don't call them clients. They are our community members. They are our neighbors. They are us. All of us here, everybody here has a family member or has themselves at some point been impacted by the justice system. And so we know on a very personal level how much Prop 36 will impact us, how the funds will be diverted from much needed programs that are in place that are barely at this moment scratching the surface. Like Lex mentioned, Prop 47 was the floor and not the ceiling. And so we have been trying to piece together programs and do things for community members here. To lose that would be devastating. All of the different things that are offered in here, peer mentor programs, drug counseling, job placement and job counseling. These are all of the things that will be impacted. And we, as everybody here has already said, we know that these services work and that we need more of this, not less of this. We rely on peers to really help people make the connections and find the services and know where the door is when they are ready to walk through it. We are, we're a very small community in Northern California, but we have one of the largest per capita number of unsheltered population here. And so I understand why some people are frustrated, but a lot of those people, as already noted, have been impacted by the criminal justice system. And further impacting them is not the solution. So that is one of the reasons why we are really against Proposition 36 here in Humboldt County.
Thank you so much, Elena. So we're going to go from the top down to the Central Valley, and really pleased to invite Tiffany James from the Care First Coalition, Care First California, Kern. Kern County has the highest per capita rate of state violence in the country, and another underserved area that they overlook in these policy efforts. So pleased to have you here, and welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Tiffany James, representing CFK, Care First Kern, and I am a resident here in Kern County. I'm a mother with children who live here in Kern County in Bakersfield, California. I'm formerly incarcerated. I'm also a working citizen who teaches and graduated at the university. Kern County is surrounded by jails and facilities and prisons. Prop 36 is likely to increase that local criminal justice costs in Kern County by tens of millions of dollars annually due to larger jail populations and an increased community supervision that we'll need since we're surrounded by our formerly incarcerated. Project Rebound is a program that assists formerly incarcerated individuals with earning degrees at a university level. It has a 0% recidivism rate. Prop 36 does not guarantee proper housing, supportive services to support our formerly incarcerated. Formerly incarcerated individuals here in Bakersfield may be likely to recidivate or resort to survival crimes. Prop 36 may result in reducing funding for mental health, drug treatment programs, school truancy prevention, and victim services right here in Kern County. So how does this impact our community here in Kern County? Prop 36 is likely to unfairly affect low-income residents and communities of color in terms of increased incarceration rates. Prop 36 will have a negative impact on several community members right here in Kern County in Bakersfield. A no on Prop 36 will begin an ongoing process in protecting our communities here in Bakersfield, such as our homeless, our disabled, whether they're physical or mental, our brown, Black fathers, mothers, and our formerly incarcerated individuals, which we are surrounded by here in Kern County. We say no on Prop 36. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Really appreciate it. We're going to step out now into a more national perspective, but there's an irony to this because we're going to invite Salil Dudani from Civil Rights Corps, one of the most effective and important impact litigation organizations in the country, who run successful impact litigation to get our people free consistently. Now, they are national, but if you would ask them, who do they end up having to do so much of their work and labor for, is the state of California. State of California, who claims to be so progressive. But remember, if we were our own country, we would be the third largest prison population in the world. We have a jailing crisis, a prison crisis. It's an actual humanitarian crisis of massive scale. And that's why we end up needing folks like Salil so often. And so I'm really pleased to welcome you, Salil, and hear your analysis on this particular issue.
Thanks, Lex. Like Lex said, I'm a senior attorney with Civil Rights Corps. We're a national legal nonprofit. We're based in DC, though we work all over the country. And like Lex said, there's a lot of work to be done in California. One of the big issues we work on is cash bail and pretrial detention. The majority of people in jail across the country are there just because they can't make a cash payment. And the majority of people in pretrial jail in California are there just because they can't make an arbitrary payment. And the reason I bring that up, and one of the reasons CRC is so opposed to Prop 36, is that a vote for Prop 36 is a vote for more cash-based pretrial jailing, more pretrial detention, more arbitrary money bail. And that's because when you turn misdemeanors into felonies, you get more pretrial jailing. Those people are more likely to be stuck in jail, even though they're presumed innocent, even though no judge has found them too dangerous to release, just because they can't pay the price tag of freedom. One really important thing about this that not enough people understand is that locking people up like this increases crime. It's so destabilizing to a person's lives to pluck them out of their community, to separate them from their family, to separate them from their job, and put them in a jail cell, that they become more likely to commit crime. And that's what all the research on pretrial detention shows. It's been studied to death. It's been studied in St. Louis, in New York, in New Jersey, in Colorado, in California, and so on and so on. And the finding is that it undermines public safety to lock people up in low-level offenses, exactly like Prop 36 provides. For example, putting someone in jail pretrial for 7 days, just 7 days, makes them 32% more likely to commit a felony in the next 18 months. We're going to see more of that if Prop 36 passes. So, we're a national nonprofit, but I live in California. I live in Orange County. And I do want to say it's absolutely true that Prop 36 is a rebranding on the war of drugs, but it's also really important to remember. Some people are saying it's a return to the war on drugs, but we never left the war on drugs. In Orange County, where I live, the most common arrest is for possession of drug paraphernalia. That's the norm nationwide. The most common arrest still is for possession of drugs. And just like the pretrial implications of Prop 36 are so cruel and ineffective and counterproductive, the same is true of the sentencing provisions. Sending someone to state prison for drug possession, which will become possible under Prop 36, is cruel, it's ineffective, and it will increase crime. Of course, the same is true of theft. And what's really perverse is that even the politicians pushing Prop 36, they know this. They're not fools. If their political careers depended on actually dropping the numbers, nothing else, just actually the results, dropping the numbers of crime, of overdoses, of homelessness, they would not be supporting Prop 36 because they would know year after year after year, criminalization doesn't work. And so Prop 36 undermines public safety, and Civil Rights Corps is opposed to it.
Thank you so much, Salil, and for delivering such a good, strong list of just irrefutable facts. And the only reason those facts ever feel counterintuitive to anyone is nonstop propaganda to tell us otherwise. There's no need for us to allow 36 to set up another 20-year crisis when we're already digging out of the last one. And like Salil said, it's a continuation of the war on drugs, not a return to the war on drugs. And the war on drugs is the main driver of the crisis that people are experiencing now as far as quality of life is concerned. So now we're going to go down to what some people say is Southern California, what other people say is the Central Coast. I'll leave it up to them to decide. But Vanessa Teran from MyCop in Ventura County, please take us home.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll be off camera. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Teran. I'm the policy director with the Mixteco Indígena Community Organizing Project on the Central Coast of California. Just to share a little bit about the Mixteco Indígena Community Organizing Project, it was founded in 2001 in Ventura County in order to address the needs of underserved migrant and indigenous communities, primarily Mixteco, Zapoteco, and Purépecha speakers across the Tri-County regions of San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara County, and Ventura County. MyCop opposes Proposition 36 as a dangerous and misleading proposal that will target Black, Indigenous, and people of color who are already living on the margins of our society. The families we serve are amongst the lowest paid in agricultural industry, and they already face a high degree of social barriers and systemic racism and discrimination, even from other peers such as Latinx groups, due to the long-lasting history of anti-Indigenous, anti-Indian racism and prejudice throughout our society, particularly here in Ventura County, as 75% of our population is Latino. We asked and we stand with the communities here in order to reduce the incarceration of communities of color and the continued perpetuation of poverty and the war on poverty for our community. We stand firmly against Proposition 36. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody here who's taken time to hear from folks doing work across the state of California. This was not some sanctioned effort. This is not a special interest. This is people understanding how urgent it is that we stop Prop 36, that we don't drive the problem deeper into the depths that we will continue to have to fight and dig and chip our way out of. No matter what, we're going to be fighting for what people deserve, but we do hope that this constant cynical dissonance and dishonesty and misinformation can be less and less normalized as we move forward when we have conversations about real public safety, real health outcomes, and what people deserve. So those of you who are here from the press, feel free if you want to take any time to ask us any questions. If you do have a question, please direct it at someone specific. Otherwise, it'll be hard to facilitate an answer. And if folks have to go, also we're at the agenda, so please go if you need to. But we do want to give a little space if folks have questions. And thank you so much once again.
Hi, this is Liz Joe with LA Public Press. I think I might actually have a question for maybe Vanessa about the treatment aspect of the I know it's messaging as well as there's, but I was wondering when they mentioned rehab in the languages, the language, what exactly is the kind of experience reality of what kind of rehab is provided, and also what the kind of or that's on offer, and like what are some of the ways in which like a reporter could, I know this is more of a election centered conversation, but like a reporter can kind of focus on in terms of um what people can do to create different kinds of programs, and because there are people in power who decide what happens to those programs and what funding they get, like are there any currently in anything that people can look at and put pressure on public officials to sort of pay more attention to versus maybe like something like Prop 36? Does that make sense? That question went all over the place, but yeah.
So the first part of your question is about the treatment implications of 36. And then the other part of your question is kind of what can or should people be demanding? Is that correct?
Yeah. And then also for reporters, like what are some things that we should be like following much more closely so that like if people are trying to, push for something better and there's actually something already kind of idea that's already been sort of like sitting around. Maybe somebody already has like proposed it in a motion or like a bill or something like that. It's just not getting the funding or the attention.
Thank you. So would anybody like to answer the first part of the question about treatment? Carolina, would you mind taking some of that one?
Sure. So the question is about kind of what the state of treatment is here in California. That's the way I'm interpreting the question, Liz. This is Carolina Vai from Disability Rights California. So part of, I think, what has been so frustrating about the messaging around Prop 36, and I'll say the recent messaging around Prop 36 has been that it's based on the false premise we have a robust treatment system here in California, which we do not. Currently, it used to be that, for example, you could get inpatient treatment for a particular substance use issue 6 to 9 months, and now that's been whittled down to 30 days as a result of the drug Medi-Cal system. So that's something I think reporters have overlooked is some of the changes, but specifically the shortening of treatment stays as a result of the shift to drug Medi-Cal. The second thing too I would mention is that we talk about drug treatment as if it's one service, but it's actually a continuum of care. So if you think about inpatient treatment being an average of 30 days right now, well, think about what detox looks like. Detox probably takes about 30 days. So at the day 30, you're actually really beginning the more long-term treatment. The other piece too is that in terms of like bulletproof solutions here, we don't talk enough about safe ejection sites. That's a piece of legislation that actually our Democratic governor could have signed, but in fact vetoed a couple of years ago. And it's actually the only bulletproof solution to preventing overdoses here in California, which is one aspect of our treatment system. And I think, we don't call out enough in the press. And then I think just lastly, the piece around that was spoken to earlier from a couple of the speakers, which is that we are not under Prop 36 is not providing treatment services to people. And it's also not arresting people for having an addiction issue. It's arresting people for getting caught with drugs, which is a completely different matter. And even if there's a small subset of that population that does have a potential addiction issue, Prop 36 cuts funding for any treatment that was available under the original Prop 47 Act. And then I think I saw Ray also raise his hand, so I don't know if you wanted to chime in here.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that treatment in California is not through incarceration. Prop 36 incarcerates people for having it incarcerates people for having an addiction that some are born with, right? Proposition 36 is an excuse to incarcerate people for addiction. But incarceration, I'm saying from my point of view, from my standpoint, from my lived experience from being formerly incarcerated, it only exacerbates the addiction. It doesn't treat it at all. It doesn't treat it. It creates an avenue through incarceration, the need for drug use to escape the whatever depression or reality or mental illness you got while you're incarcerated because of the addiction that they're supposedly trying to treat. So I don't think there was really a treatment plan. I think they're trying to treat us through incarceration.
That's right. Under 36, all roads lead back to jail and prison, whether they admit that or not. And it's really important to name the fact that it's gotten to a point with our housing crisis that even having a kind of, not particularly nice apartment is now a luxury for people. And people do drugs inside of houses, by the way, too. So this is going to target the visibly poor. This is going to target the most vulnerable in an effort to keep that revolving door of the carceral system alive and well, because it's also a revolving door of public funding from us, taxpayers who continue to give all of our money to the prison system, to the jail system, to police departments, to sheriff's departments, to probation departments across the state. And it's a big part of why our streetlights are dark. It's a big part of why our roads aren't paved. It's a big part of why people don't have access to localized healthcare. It's a big part of why our schools continue to get defunded. And it's a big part of why no one's able to even adjust in any way to gentrification and just fall through the cracks. So I think that the treatment component of this conversation coming from the pro on 36 side, it's not only just a lie, but it's a very cynical and quite nasty lie when they're the ones saying, nah, treatment didn't work, people need jail. That's what they're saying. Jail is exactly what drives the problem, as we know. To the other point, Liz, about what people are demanding, it begs a much deeper and longer conversation about the fact that the things that do work are long-term, unconditional housing, dignified housing, funding for housing. Things that also work is people having enough money to get by. It starts as an economic justice conversation in order to have a health conversation. When we start by simply pathologizing people for their substance use, pathologizing people for their poverty, we're also criminalizing them at the same time. And they've merged that through things like Care Court and SB 43 and Prop 1. And then 36 is kind of drives that last big nail into the coffin. We're not going to let them do that, but it's important to name that that's what they want. The biggest policy influencer of Prop 36 has been the DA's Association. So those of you who haven't, please Google quotes from the head of the DA's Association and see how they talk about our people, see how they look at these issues. Understand that they are literally a bloodthirsty extremist organization who seeks to influence policy, and then when it's convenient, try to pivot the message and talk about treatment. It's just really quite bad, I'm going to say. Are there any other questions before we wrap up?
Hi, this is Sophia Bolag from the San Francisco Chronicle. Lex, following up on what you just said, like, I see what you're saying about this measure sort of diverting money into police budgets or, jail budgets. You had also mentioned earlier, and I think Genevieve might have also mentioned it, maybe some other speakers, if anyone else wants to weigh in, but that this was an effort to, by retailers to sort of subsidize their failing business model, I think is what you said. Can you walk me through what you mean by that? Because there's no funding in this measure for anything, including treatment. And so I'm wondering what money you're talking about there and how you think that would work.
Yes, I appreciate you asking that question. We often, even those of us who mean to, haven't gotten to talk enough about the retail industries, the retail lobby's investment in this. So the retail lobby is aware that big retailers, we're not talking about small business, by the way, let's be clear, because everyone talks about theft. Nobody robs from small business more than big business. Let's make that clear. Secondly, large retail is losing a lot of money right now. And they're losing money because the business model is failing. They're losing money because people shop online. People buy on Amazon, for example. People buy online. The other reason they're losing money is they don't want to pay a livable wage and they don't want to hire staff. So now if you go shopping at a CVS or a Rite Aid or a Target, you have to check out your own items. Everything's automated. They lock up everything. They don't lock up everything because of theft. They lock up everything because they don't want to staff. They don't want to staff their businesses. So now what happens when you go to a CVS or Rite Aid? There's one or two people in there if you're lucky. Shopping's become such a miserable experience for people. And working in retailers is very difficult for people now because if you live in California, whether it's urban or rural California, the cost of living has become untenable. So this cost of living crisis that we keep mentioning has also made it very hard for these businesses to work. What do? They blame the idea that there's been this spike in theft, that there's been this spike in criminality since Prop 47. That's not true. That's just not true. All data proves that it's not true. But to be more specific about your question, what they would love is for taxpayers to subsidize a massive increase in security that's directed at large retailers through policing, through surveillance, that they themselves don't have to pay for. They don't have to hire extra staff. They don't have to hire extra security guards. They don't have to hire extra people there to make the environment feel safer to people, whether the data proves or not that it's less safe, because it proves that it is less safe. People feel less safe in a lot of kind of facets of their life right now. And I want to stop and just say part of why people feel less safe right now is because the vast majority of people in California are one paycheck away from having to leave their home or not be able to have a home at all. And that is going to create a sense of a lack of security. And it is important to validate that. Because just because crime is not up, crime's in fact very low, doesn't mean that we should tell people, oh no, you're fine, everything's fine, because everything is not fine. We have a cost of living crisis. We have incredibly corrupt governance across the state right now, and very cynical response from politicians. And so now they want us to give even more of our budgets to law enforcement. And that will allow retailers to continue to cut their staffing budgets while we pay for the security, while we pay for the surveillance. And while the law subsidizes theft, because if they want to raise the felony threshold, or I should say lower it back down to between 400 and 500, that's another boon for them. So I do appreciate you asking that question, because I don't feel like the retail lobby's relationship to Prop 36 has been named enough. And it's also important to note, well, I'm going to pass it to Carolina, who did a lot of research on this, and I see your hand, so thank you.
Yeah, it has not been covered, the role of the retail lobby in funding and supporting Proposition 36. They're the biggest donors. Walmart is the biggest donor underwriting Prop 36, but they have not been put on their back heel in terms of explaining why they are funding Prop 36, what their formal position is on Prop 36. And when you actually look at some of the business data around their losses, these big corporations are not losing funding because of external theft, meaning you or me going in and stealing toothpaste. They're losing it because of corporate mismanagement and because of their own employees stealing their stuff. So it's actually not the public that is resulting in those theft losses. They've also been caught lying in the process. So back in December, they inflated the data on organized retail theft, and then they had to retract that, which has been covered a little bit in the media, but this bigger picture around the role of the retail lobby has not. And I think also, if you look at, so when Prop 36 was initially being developed and signatures were being collected, the Democratic Party here in California put forth a public safety package as a bargaining tool to try and keep Prop 36 off of the ballot. And the final set of bills that were ultimately signed by our Democratic governor were all supported by the Retail Association here in California. And so that's telling us some information about their level of investment in creating more policing and surveillance of people. And that piece has not been highlighted by the press at all. So they haven't been asked about what their formal position is on Prop 36. They haven't been asked to explain their support for legislation that accompanies Prop 36, because those retail bills that have been signed by the governor achieve many of the same outcomes that Prop 36 does. And then lastly, they have not been asked to explain and provide more accurate data on what their actual losses are. And then just from a more existential perspective, why is it that we're having big corporations here bankroll a proposition that is really none of their business? It's none of their business to be doing this. And so, yeah, just wanted to add those pieces too.
And to add quickly, the retail lobby federally also lobbied to change the definition of organized retail theft to now mean two or more people. And this is a long-standing tactic that goes back, like many of our worst criminal justice policies have been incubated in California, which goes back to old gang databases where two or more people in a certain neighborhood were now classified as a gang and lose certain civil rights. So now two or more people caught stealing at the same time is organized retail theft, which then goes out in the press release. So that's another important distinction, I think, as we parse through this. I also shared in the chat the New York Times article about them having to retract their false claims about retail theft. Any other questions or any other responses to that question? I know you mentioned something Genevieve had said. I don't know if you want to add anything from San Diego. So I just want to keep it open.
Well, just from the perspective of San Diego, I would just like to add that property crimes and shoplifting has decreased in San Diego. Over the last few years, it has continued to decline. And so when I look at how politicians, these elected officials, are kowtowing to big business and big law enforcement for job security, it really is disheartening to see that people who are supposed to represent the people, represent our interests, are actually in cahoots with these folks that are trying to harm the community without basis. And San Diego is a prime example of that, because we have a mayor who has said some very harsh things regarding Prop 47 and is supportive of Prop 36, but it makes no sense in San Diego. It is against the crime trends. And so that there is something bigger at play. And it goes back to the scam and the sham of law enforcement and big retail companies who are bankrolling this particular measure.
And if I could just quickly follow up on that, you mentioned the mayor of San Diego, who is obviously a Democrat, and this is something that has really split the Democratic Party. I wonder, I don't know, Genevieve, if you want to weigh in on this or if anyone else does, but if anyone wants to weigh in sort of on the split you're seeing among Democrats, because that is kind of a new dynamic, I think oh gosh, I can't remember who mentioned it, but there has been opposition to Prop 47 and attempts to roll it back from conservatives for a long time. But there's really been, more of a push from moderate Democrats now that we're seeing with Prop 36. And so I just wonder if anyone wants to weigh in on that dynamic as well.
Just really quickly, I will say that like any other group, the Democratic Party is not monolithic. And in San Diego, we are in a very unique place where our entire city council is made up of Democrats. Our mayor is a Democrat. And on our county board of supervisors, the majority is Democrats. Now, what I will say is that there has always been this kind of undercurrent where some elected officials, for job security purposes, out of fear, intimidation, whatever, name the cause, but they put law enforcement interests over people. And it can be boiled down to wanting to stay in office, and they're afraid of what law enforcement will do, and they are afraid to buck up against law enforcement. And this is regardless of whether someone calls themselves a progressive or not. And I would honestly like for us to stop using the term progressive until we can actually define it and get people who are really and truly holding on to progressive values. But I digress. So what we're seeing is something that has always been a part of the history of politics in this nation, where you really don't see a difference between Republicans and Democrats on certain issues. I'm just going to keep it real. And within the Democratic Party, there have always been people who would divest from the community in order to stay in a place of power. And for that, to happen, they need to kowtow to law enforcement. And so that's just an unfortunate reality that should change and must change, but that is an issue that we have to deal with. And this is a prime example with Prop 36, where it does not make sense for community members, and yet people are jumping on this bandwagon of hysteria and offering up this false solution.
That's right. And thank you so much. And just as a reminder, I'm sure you're familiar with the history, but it was the Democratic Party who oversaw the largest investment in the prison system in the history of our country. In 1994, the federal crime bill written by Joe Biden was the largest step in that direction and at that scale ever. And it's important to remember that also came concurrent with so-called welfare reform, the gutting of social services, and an increased crackdown on immigration in a very violent and punitive way. All of that was done under the Democrats. Like I said, California is the largest prison system in the country. And if you took LA County, Orange County, Kern County, Ventura County, and put them all together, the average daily population of people sitting in a cage right now would be close to 40,000, which is a humanitarian crisis and essentially a mega complex of mass incarceration. And that's just the jails I'm talking about, not even the prisons. So the idea that, the Democrats represent an alternative on this has never been true. And frankly, if it was, we wouldn't have to be here. We wouldn't have to be here doing this work. If we had a party in office that represented the interests of people that need to be safe, if they represented a true public safety analysis, if they represented a true public health analysis, we wouldn't have to be here fighting this fight. And maybe we could all be pursuing our other dreams. But we're here for a reason. And so I don't think many of us are surprised at certain Democrats going in that direction. It's nothing new. There's also that new kind of unfortunate piece of political theater we're all witnessing in California, where California is very firmly Democrat. So Republicans have a very hard time winning elections. And so now everybody runs as a Democrat. Some call themselves moderates, some call themselves progressives. We see that the way policy gets put together, the way it gets implemented, we haven't even talked about procurement and contracting, is very disconnected from whatever the Democratic mandate is. And so I don't find it actually particularly interesting that certain opportunistic Democrats are trying to distinguish themselves right now or see some sort of opportunity. They've spoken to consultants. Some of the consultants have said, hey, the trends have switched. It was progressive yesterday. Tomorrow it's conservative. Then it might switch back to being progressive the next day. We know that our job and the job of media and everybody else is to tell the truth. And every fact that we've shared today has been true and irrefutable. Any other questions before we got to go? All right. Well, really so deeply appreciate everybody's presence here, all of the questions, all of what everyone had to share. Myself and Carolina are on the press release. I think it's Carolina, but anyway, we're all reachable. So any questions that you have, hit us up offline. If there's any of the speakers that you have specific questions for, we will direct you to them, no problem. We really are grateful for the opportunity to generate this dialogue rooted in truth. To the media who showed up, thank you so much for being here, and have a great rest of your week. It's only Tuesday. It feels like Friday. I'm sorry about that, but take it easy.